Well, good morning, everyone. I am Mauricio Rivera, Assistant National Director of the Veteran Institute for Procurement, and I want to welcome you to the final session of our VIP Continued Education Workshop series. As if you participated in the earlier versions, you already know that we developed this to give veteran business owners the opportunity to take a deeper dive on relevant market topics. This workshop theme is how to identify relevant opportunities and develop an effective pipeline. These are, of course, very important steps you should take in helping you grow your business. And I can tell you, having led the other sessions, this one is particularly important and one that I think will be, really relevant to you and really useful for you in helping to grow a pipeline. You're going to get some really, really good information today. Just to also let you know, a reminder that the workshop is brought to you by the Veteran Institute for Procurement in partnership with the SBA and the Veterans Business Outreach Centers, and was developed to help veteran businesses accelerate growth in the federal marketplace. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our distinguished speaker and a good friend, Mr. Carlos Rivera. Carlos is the founder, chairman, and president of Visnova Partners, and has more than 30 years of experience working in the health and information management sectors. And in the area of healthcare information systems, Carlos has a strong background in the development of requirements, contracting, implementation, and evaluation of health sector technology projects. He's participated in major assessments, evaluations, project implementation, and strategic planning activities for USAID, the World Bank, foreign governments, US military, foreign military, private sector customers, and a whole bunch of other organizations that are not in my notes, but I know his background. And we are really thrilled to have you with us, Carlos, this morning. And just in general, before I hand it over to you, for everyone, we want you to hold your questions. We got a lot of really good material for you, but we want you to hold your questions until the end. If you do have something burning, you can put it into the chat and we'll make sure to get to it before we close out the session. And just remember that we will send the slides and the video recording from today's session. We'll email those to you afterwards. And now, again, it gives me great pleasure to turn it over to my good friend, Mr. Carlos Rivera. Carlos?
Wow, Mauricio, thank you. That's what an intro. I mean, I almost feel like Tiger Woods getting ready to tee off at a golf tournament, Really, I wanna first thank you and Barbara and the rest of the VIP team for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. I will tell you more about my background in a second, so you know why I'm here. But thank you for having me, and my good friend Skip Blackburn from Bit Solutions, who's also going to be participating in the demo. He actually has more experience than me in business development and capture. I mean, he's probably knows more than I'll forget. So he's going to be a great resource too. And I know we put his information in the presentation, so everybody can then follow up, because there's not enough time to do everything we want to do. Just so you know, I'm looking at everybody. I have a giant screen in front of me, and my camera's to the side, so it's not like I'm not looking at you. I am looking at you. It's just that it's over here. And then the second administrative note: there is a puppy in this room, and he's quietly sleeping. So hopefully we'll get through it. And he's a big giant German Shepherd, and he's only 13 weeks old. Anyway, without further ado, so if I can go to the next slide, I'm gonna tell you what my goals are. And apart from the agenda, which you can read, and I was taught a long time ago, don't read people their slides because they can read. My goal is to build on the other presentations and the presenters that have been part of this series ahead of me. And so my goal is to kind of tie it all together, so you can then look at the way that in my experience, you develop targets as a company, and then based on that, you develop a pipeline to match those targets, right? So if you say my target is $10 million in revenue, then we will talk through how do you come up with that mix, and then how do you manage a pipeline in order to do that. The other things that you already went through, like how to use some of the search tools in the government systems, how to use FPDS, how to do market research. All of those are building blocks that lead to this. Basically, all avenues bring you to, okay, now how are we going to do it, right? Now that you got some learning already done. So my goal is to provide you some guidelines. Again, this is my opinion. This is not VIP's position or anyone other than my company other than myself. This is the way I do it. As a matter of background, I've been in GovCon about 25 years. I ran 2 successful companies. Well, I run a second successful company. We're about to become large. So I guess I use that as a measurement of success. Over the last 25 years, I worked on teams that won almost $2 billion in actual contract value, not just IDIQs. So I've had the opportunity to do a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about is I learned through this thing. So I am a veteran. I'm a Navy veteran, and I love nothing more than to share what I can to help other veterans move forward. And as Mauricio knows, I'm also on the board of directors of VIP and the parent group. So I'm committed to this, as they say, 100%. So if I can move to the next slide, please. All right. So my intro, I'll be very super fast. Navy enlisted, Navy officer. My first company, I started after, we fumbled through our first acquisition merger, then partially sold, then created a new small business. And I've been operating that for the last 11 years, not 8 years. We're no longer small in the many NICS codes. So my measurement of success is the first time it took us 15 years to become a large firm. This time it's taking us 8 years to become a large firm. So, a lot of people ask me, well, what did you do different? Well, I've made a lot less mistakes because all of us make a ton of mistakes, and hopefully you won't make as many as I did, and you'll get there faster. I want to highlight two books that kind of guide a lot of what I do. One is if you're in a transition, once you're a certain size and you're now looking to get to the next big band, you should read this book from Talk Business School. I'm an alumni from there. Is What Got You Here Won't Get You There. That really talks about the shift in your own mindset as a CEO that you have to have as you move to become a larger firm. And then one that actually re-energized my career after being a CEO for 17 years and actually changed everything I do. And that is Start With Why by Simon Sinek, which is a great book. There's an 18-minute video on YouTube if you can't pay attention to the book, right? That really helped. And that, by the way, that last item has changed the way everything we do. My company is not run by me. It's actually run by our people. And it's allowed us to grow into a much bigger firm over time because we changed the approach that we have as to what we pursue and what we go after as a company. We've been very successful in growing about 50 to 100% every 2 years, which is much higher than the average industry average, right? And as you can see there, it tells you how we did the skip from 5 to 15 to 20 to 30. And we hope to be at a $50 million rate soon. All right, can I go to the next slide? My company, just so, again, you gotta put up your street cred, right? I'm, as Mauricio said, I'm the president and CEO of Visnova Partners. We focus on government program management, primarily in the health sector. We run, and when I say that, we run life science research. We run public health programs. We do not sell equipment. We do not sell supplies. We're not a medical supplier. We're not a staffing company. We are none of those things. We run these programs, large scale programs for pretty much every agency out there doing work overseas. And you can see we work in about 25 countries, and you can see a list right there. Next slide. Okay, so since in this call, there are every kind of company out there, right? Whether you're a brand new startup, because I know at least one of the people that I help is on this call, um, to companies that are well experienced. So having that broad of a range of companies makes it incredibly difficult to talk about what I'm about to talk about. So what I try to do is to bucket them into groups. The first thing you have to know, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, is that one of the challenges that you have to figure out what you are, whether you're trying to build a lifestyle company versus a growing entity, right? And a growing entity is one that eventually either gets merged or gets acquired, or you acquire two other groups and then you become much larger, or you take private equity money or VC money and then you continue to grow, as opposed to one that is really owner centric, right? Where the the owner manages everything, controls everything. So you have to figure out, this affects everything we do on the business development side, right? Is how much of this do you do or not do is going to be based on, and again, my opinion as to whether you're running a lifestyle company versus a traditional company that is being, built to sell, or whatever you want to call it. So you have to first develop that. And again, I put those, you have to make peace with whatever you are, and that will drive a lot of it. Next slide, please. Okay, this is what I was talking about, the different size companies. The different sizes means a different approach, as you can imagine, a different approach to business development and pipeline development. So for purposes of my presentation, the way I group this is by saying, all right, and these are all random numbers. I just made this stuff up for lack of another thing, right? But I said, okay, there'll be people here that'll be between $0 and $3 million. My assumption is that you basically, you are the staff. You don't have 20 people working in the company. You have a bunch of 1099s. Typically, the owner's billable. You really don't have a back office operation going. You just simply, you manage the payroll, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. You're managing the payroll, you're managing your accounting yourself, or maybe you have a bookkeeper that helps you with that. And then if you do have contracts that you're implementing, most likely you're financing either by personal funding or through factoring, which is where you take your receivables and you sell them to a funding agent that then gives you money, normally about 80% against those receivables. Nothing wrong with that. It's what everybody does when they're starting out. So it's just simply part of the game, right? Then your priorities, in my opinion, need to be revenue, revenue, revenue. You're not there to build infrastructure. You're not there to try to have a great HR manual or something like that. You're there to drive revenue into your company so you can develop all those things or have a reason to develop all those things. In my experience, most companies that go out of business, and as you know, if you don't know, over 50% of them go out of business within 5 years, and another 25% of those go out of business in the next 5 years. It's because they run out of money. Not because they didn't have great people, not because they didn't have great solutions, not because they weren't like, oh my God, they got this great innovative thing, or they didn't have content. Just simply, they can't operate because they can't make payroll. End of story. That's what kills most companies. In my opinion, your primary pursuit should be subcontracts. That's the way to drive revenue, and I'll talk a lot about that in the coming slides. The next one is, if you're a small business and you're doing between 3 and 10 million, normally you're around 5, and you're starting to really figure out that you need all of these things, right? You need HR, you need accounting, you need so you have some informal pieces, you have parts and pieces. You may even be partially billable. I've seen a lot of the companies I mentor, the CEOs being billable well beyond $5 million. They say, oh, but the client wants to talk to me. Oh, I need to be there. I mean, that's always what they say to me when I'm saying you really need to reduce that and really focus on bringing in revenue. But it's what you have to do is what you have to do in order to make the thing work, right? They may have some informal policies and procedures, And they may or may not have, like, especially because the SBA and banks have this, what is it, 7-something program where they get access to a small credit facility, especially when you're a veteran company. It's a one document thing to get a small credit line. Again, in my opinion, your priority is to be revenue. You need to migrate from having a 1099 based staffing solution to having a more of a staff solution, so you can recover indirects, and I'll talk about indirects if you want. But that's what allows you to then build the rest of the infrastructure that you need to have a real company underneath your feet. And then implementing some basic operations, developing some basic operating procedures, and basic recruiting becomes a big challenge to you. Okay. My opinion, your targets needs to be about 80% subcontracts and about 20% prime opportunity. The closer you're to the 10 million, that's where you'll be closer to that prime contracts, 20%. But it may be that if you're 5 million, that all your stuff is all subcontract, and that's perfectly fine. You need to wean yourself out of that over time, but you can't give up the revenue, because you're gonna have a hard time winning contracts because you don't have any past performance. In past performance, the only thing you have is that's a sub and not a prime. So you're asking the government to take a risk on you as a prime that you can implement a program. What's funny to me is when I meet people that are doing this and they're like, yeah, we're going after this $100 million contract. If you're doing, I'm going to use 6 million to make it easier on my head. If you're doing $6 million a year, you're billing about $500,000 a month, right? Is that right? And you are not going to be, you don't have the finances to be able to sustain a $100 million program. What will make you think that you can prime that? That doesn't make any sense. So making good sense decisions are the ones that are going to help you build a pipeline that sustains your company. The third small business type that I grouped this for my next slides is the 10 to $20 million company, which is more like your traditional GovCon. They're somewhere in there. They're jamming. They may have some overhead staff. They may have they may be using a PEO. If that's a professional employment organization, and there's several in town that basically provide you fractional support from accounting to HR to CFO services to all kinds of things on a fractional basis rather than a full-time basis. Normally, the owners already figured out that they can't be billable and they can't do that, and then also run a company and help grow it and help develop business opportunities for it. You do have the start, or you have repeatable policies and procedures. Normally you have bank financing by this point, so you secured a larger line and you're able to operate. Obviously at this stage, you're looking, everyone is always looking to expand revenue and advance by pursuing more advanced opportunities. I will tell you, in my experience, because we did at this stage, recruiting becomes our #1 headache. And it is for everybody, especially right now, because when you're trying to recruit, I know a friend of mine that has 40 open positions that they haven't been able to staff, right? If he staffed them all, he would double the size of the company, but he can't. So recruiting becomes, and he is in this band, it's the #1 priority for you is suddenly figuring out how to be able to recruit. And again, that's when you start flipping the model and you start looking at your subcontracts become less and your prime opportunities become more. Just to give you us as an example, we are beyond this band, but 90% of our bids are over 95% of our bids are prime, and very few were sub. And if you look at our contract base, the majority of about 80% of our contracts are prime contracts, and about 20% are subcontracts. Next slide. All right. I literally just finished writing this for somebody else, and I put it in here because he's in that initial category. If I'm a stage 1 company, and he says, where should I focus my time? That was, by the way, really smart to ask, right? Because a lot of people go, no, I think I know what I got to do. I got to keep knocking on doors or whatever. So the approach I use and that I recommend the companies that I work with, that I've worked with as a mentor, is something that Mauricio, you and I have talked to over the years, is take a moment, a pause, do some planning. The biggest problem I see to small companies is that they don't want to plan. And you know, as they say, right? Yeah, plans fail, but 100% of the things that don't plan, you know, don't have a plan. They don't know how to implement, and a lot of times they fail. They have a failure rate that's much higher. And that is, in my opinion, you take and you identify 3 to 5 agencies, maybe only 3, right? Agencies, but be specific. Oh, I want to work with USA. No, that's not good enough. I want to work with USA, with the Global Health Bureau, with the group that's doing disease surveillance. That's specific. Now you narrow it down to a potential client, right? And you can do that. You can sit there and say, oh, I want to work with CISA, depending on your space, whether you're IT, which is a lot of the companies in this town. I don't do IT, but or somebody else, right? You can narrow it down to this group within Health and Human Services, within NIH. NIH has 14 different groups underneath. Find the one and the particular office that you're targeting. Identify 3 to 5 of those. Then you can look at the tools like SAM, FPDS. Go there and look at that agency, at that office, and look at the contracts that have been issued by them. And then find 10 major contractors, like a GDIT, a Leidos, Parsons, Accenture, any large firm that's already working there, right? Identify 10 of them, okay? Now, I hope that everybody knows what in the government, what an OSDBU is, the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, right? OSDBU, there's a director of OSDBU in most agencies, it's not all agencies. Large firms have something called an SBLO, a small business liaison officer, SBLO. They have their own association. All the large firms have them, and their role is very similar to an OSDBU in the government side. Their role is to ensure that small businesses are utilized the way that the contracts require them to be utilized, right? So if the contract has a 20% small business utilization, their job is to make sure that the company is in fact doing that, and they have to report on that, and they have to report to the government on that. So they're in the same way that an OSDBU has to report, right, Mauricio? They have the same type of reporting requirements that they have to comply with. So it's a compliance issue with contracts. So once you identify these contracts that they won, look for the contracts that were won. Typically, most contracts run 5 years. So look at the contracts that they won 3 years ago. And why 3 years ago? Because typically an RFP will come out somewhere in the 4th year of that contract, because they're hoping to get it awarded before the contract ends the following year, right? So somewhere about 18 months out, the RFP will drop. Large firms and larger small businesses all start doing their capture planning 2 years out. We start looking at the opportunity 2 years out. We try to get out there and talk to the client at least once or twice. We try to go out there and talk to the implementers to see if there's a way to partner. Because it's easier to go in there with a team that's already there rather than trying to win work from scratch, right? So all of that stuff, all those steps start taking place 24 months out. If you didn't know that, then you should keep that in mind. Because I can't believe, you can't believe how many times a small company has shown up on my doorstep saying, oh my God, you have this thing and you're recompeting it. Is there any way, do you have any room in your team? Dude, we put our team together 2 years ago. There's no chance, 0 chance that I'm gonna try to, unless there's a gap, I'm not gonna add a team member at the last minute. We thought through it, we planned, we developed a concept of operations well ahead of the RFP. We took the last RFP and then we wrote our proposal as a response to that one, because that becomes the basis for the recompete. You follow what I'm saying? We done a lot of work over that 1 year just to get ready for that bid. So bringing a team member in there at the last minute does not work. It's really difficult unless there's a gap and you happen to fulfill that gap. If they say, oh, you need to have the new artificial intelligence technology, and I don't have that in the team, then I'm obviously going to shop for that, right? And add it to my team in order to win, because all I want to do is comply with the requirements of the RFP. Okay. You can go on SAM and you can look at archive files and look at the previous RFP. That's how you get the previous RFP. It's nobody, or if you have access to GovWin or somebody that has access to GovWin, a friend of yours does, then you're able to pull those and at least start working through. Because you're gonna need that for the next step. Review the RFP. Now remember, if you're in the 0 to 3 million or 0 to 5 million band, and you're gonna go talk to Mauricio Rivera, who happens to work for Leidos, right? You don't just go there and say, hey, you won this contract 3 years ago. I want to talk to you about the recompete of that contract. No, that might get you, yeah, thanks, but no thanks, right? But if you go there and you say, I reviewed the RFP, I looked at the requirements, which is not that much to read, and then said, I can come in, my company can really bring you value in this area and this area, and be very specific. Our value proposition will be that we can either make it faster, cheaper, better. If you can do two out of those three things, there's no one that's going to walk you away, right? Because they want to win their recompete. Next slide. How to approach an agency. So you're going to take two approaches. One is you're going to go to the large prime. And then the second one is you're going to go to the agency, because you want the agency to at least know who you are. And that, by the way, helps you when you're trying to figure out what your value proposition is. If you are able to get a meeting with the customer, even if you're not bidding as a prime, the customer might tell you what some of their challenges are. And if you can get that, that's gold. I mean, that's great information to be able to now when I speak with Leidos, when I call Mauricio at Leidos and go, hey, Mauricio, I can really help because we did meet with the customer and the customer told us that this is a big requirement, or this is something that they had not thought through last time. Because you went there in a listening mode and you asked a lot of questions rather than going there with your capability statement in your hand and try to hand it to them, which happens all the time. Let me tell you about my company. No, that's the wrong approach. Let them tell you about their problem. Let them tell you what their challenges are. Let them tell you what's working and what isn't working in their program. Don't go there and try to, I mean, the last thing I do is want to give somebody my capability statement. I do that as a leave behind. Hey, I left you my capability statement in case you want to go through it at some point. That my goal, if I have a meeting, is to focus on them and not on us as a company, right? If I give you a brief on my company, literally it'll be about 2 minutes. The rest of the meeting will be devoted to you and your requirements and me asking a lot of questions to see how I can position my company to support that contract, right? So when you do meet with an agency, this is a mistake a lot of people do. Mauricio used to be an ASTABU at USA, that's, I think, as many of you know. People show up and they go to the ASTABU thinking that the ASTABU office is going to get them a contract. And the answer is no, that doesn't happen. They don't run those programs. They don't make those acquisition decisions. They support them, they make recommendations, but they don't do that. So the way I would go to an ASTABU, and I still do today, is I go there and I say, hey, now that I know this contract's coming up for recompete, I'll reach out to the ASTABU and say, my company does this. We are really interested in this particular program. Our value proposition to that would be this. I think we can bring value to, we're interested in talking to some of the primes, and we would like to know if there's any way you can make some time, 15, 20 minutes, to kind of talk through, help us get a meeting with the program manager. Because if the program manager gets an email from you, there's 27 million small businesses in the United States, okay? I don't know what the total number of conference, but it's probably somewhere in the 5 to 10 million. So all those people are emailing these people all the time. They just don't answer that. I'm sure a lot of you have experiences like that. But if the email comes from the Asabu office, if you convince that Asabu staff member that, wow, this is a great company, let me set up that meeting. They'll set up the meeting for you with the program manager. It'll be short. So go focus, ask them the questions you're going to ask, tell them a couple of minutes on your company, but really focus on listening to them. As my dad used to tell me, you have one mouth and two ears. You should use it in the same ratio, right? So listen twice as much as you talk. And then you're able to really understand what the program challenges are, because that's the ammunition you need to be able to talk to that large firm and say, here's my value proposition as I'm working with you, okay? I do that today, and we're far bigger than everything I just told you. I just did that with another program. They said, we'll give you 20 minutes with the program manager. We were on the phone with the program manager 45 minutes. They had so many questions. They spent all the time. We really influenced them and their approach. And it's all because we were able to secure a 20-minute meeting with them. And we asked them a bunch of questions. And then they started, well, why you ask that? Well, because in our experience, this is affected by this or that. And they were like, oh my God, we didn't even think about that. They didn't say it like that, but you can see them, they're taking notes. They're like, can we get a copy of everything? So you're really affecting the way that the RFP is how they're gonna look at the RFP before it comes out. I cannot begin to tell you that last bullet there is so important. Present your capabilities the same way you present to the large prime, which is in a very focused manner. The biggest challenge and many of you guys that are largest small businesses, you have this experience with other small businesses. They'll show up and you meet them somewhere and they tell you, oh yeah, we do cybersecurity. But that's a big, broad range of things. You're a two-person company. You may do one thing, right? You don't do all these things. You'll be amazed how many small businesses, because they're afraid to limit themselves. So they want to tell you, oh yeah, we do that. Oh yeah, we do that. Oh yeah, we do that. Well, how many, do you have like 30 people on staff? I mean, no, they don't. So that's one of the biggest problems with small businesses when you're talking to them is how to curtail that enthusiasm to keep them to where tell me exactly what it is that you know how to do, and particularly how that affects me and my program. I want to focus on my program. That's great that you're growing a company. That applaud to you. That's great, but that doesn't mean anything if you're not focused on my needs and my requirements. Next slide, please. All right, large business is the same thing I was talking about before. Now you're going to go there, you're going to meet with them, you're going to be very focused on what you're going to tell them, and you're going to tell them, this is exactly, when they ask you, well, what exactly is it that you can do to bring to my program? Remember, they're being implementing this program for 3 years. As far as they know, they don't know you. They never heard of you. So you better be super focused and you're telling them, this is what I'll help. This is how I'll help you win your recompete. That's your message, right? Because I'm sure you have this component and it costs X and I can do it for Y. And my people have more certifications, or we have the latest technology. I don't know, whatever that may be that you bring as a company. But you need to really focus on your value proposition. And you'll do that with every single agency. Remember, I said, maybe only do 3 instead of 5, because that's a lot of research, a lot of groundwork. But if you do this groundwork, I guarantee you'll be growing your company in no time. This is 1,000%, because I've seen it work every time. Next slide. All right. If you're in the second band of companies, this is where you got to start looking at prime award. Remember, if you're smaller, you're only looking at subcontracting opportunity. You're doing the same thing. You're doing the same research, but you need to be looking at things that are realistic. My business partner is a former contracting officer, right? And he'll tell me all the time, it's amazing, again, that a company that is this small is suddenly wants to go bid a prime opportunity that's 50, 75, or 100 million. That they don't have the assets to fund that. And there is a misconception out there, and that is, oh yeah, but if I win the contract, I'll take the paperwork to the bank, and they'll give me a credit line. No, 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 no. I've been in this 25 years. It doesn't work like that, because the bank needs to know you, they need to trust you. You got to have past performance. You got to have past projects where you finance them, you work them, you were able to generate the revenue. You said there's going to be delays in billing, all of those things. So you do it incrementally. So just be realistic when you're trying to put a bid together. Even on the government side, Mauricio and I talked about this before. The government takes the small business required, multiplies times the number of years, and says, if you're smaller than this, you can't do that. You know what I mean? It's just the way that they look at things. So be realistic, because the contracting us is not going to give you a contract because you're nice, because you're smart. You have to provide a perfect technical solution, and you have to be properly priced, and you need to be realistic as a company in being able to implement that program. When I was a program manager and I did it for 16 programs, so may have a little experience. If I spent, you heard about how congressional funding is appropriated. When we submitted a POM and we finally got the funding, if I was a program manager, do you think I would take my risk when I'm reviewing a proposal on a company I never heard of in my life versus a larger company that I kind of knew existed and was out there? I mean, it's just human nature. You're like, but these guys sound like they know what they're doing. And every now and then you do get award to those people. But most of the time, nobody ever got in trouble because they awarded to a large firm. Because they'll implement it, and they'll implement it within budget, and they'll do the work. They're just not as innovative as small businesses are. That's the reality of it. So what we bring is the innovation. We bring the ability, the flexibility, and the agility to be able to implement. You just have to, so it's better to team up. By the way, as a company, we don't implement a single program that we don't have teaming partners on. Not one. We don't have a single contract that we don't have teaming partners on, because that is allows us to leverage experience and make us look like a bigger, like little cats do when they rear up. They make us look like a bigger cat going into the opportunity, right? So so partnership suddenly becomes your key to succeeding, right? Is being able to partner with both large and small firms, right? And identifying partners becomes, in my job, it's a big part of my job. Who are the partners? What do we need to do to main? And then we bid together. So we make decisions. Hey, why don't you take that one and we'll be a sub? And then on this one, we'll be the prime because it makes more sense, and you'll be a sub. And who else do we need as a partner so we can go in there as a real solid team? That also helps us reduce the liability on cost, right? Because if I'm implementing a $50 million program, but I'm doing it across 3 companies, then financially, all I have to come up with is my piece, because I'm going to make everybody else wait to get their money after we get paid, right? So I'm going to leverage their finance facilities as well as mine. So that gives you the opportunity to do that. Bank financing becomes a major important thing tied to your success. I never understood that for the first 10 years in business. It didn't make any sense to me. And then I suddenly understood when I won my first contract, which was the USA large contract, which was a USA contract. And then I had to figure out, oh my God, I had to go to the bank and have that conversation with them. Luckily, we were successful, but it's only because we have many contracts between here and there, and we were able to, and we have partners in the bid that we were able to leverage their financials in order for us to get financed. But that's the last thing you want to be doing at the time that you're going in. So getting a letter of commitment from your bank and putting it as part of your proposal suddenly becomes really important, because one, it notifies the bank that you're going after something, and it gets them on board. By them giving you a letter, although they don't commit to anything, they really do help you with convincing the government that you have the financing to be able to execute. One thing that I discovered, I'm going to mention this is at the bottom of this bullet. Everybody says, oh my God, I've been doing this and I just don't seem to be able to find the customers and do this or do that. And my experience is that the hardest thing is that nobody wants to do the time, spend the time doing the research that's required. As I just told you, go find the contract, go identify who's the primes, who's there, who's doing the program. Let's read the RFP, let's do all those things. Let's move that forward. Nobody wants to spend the time doing those things. And that's the number one problem that I see in my experience. Next slide, please. Okay, the 10 to $20 million company. Two things that are, one, it only becomes apparent after you've done this. I've run two companies. So the second time it became more apparent than the first time. And that is your NICS codes and the opportunities that you're targeting become important. You know, there's NICS codes that are, for example, right now, $18.5 million, like 541-611, versus an IT code or another code that's $47 million or something like that. So suddenly looking at what you're bidding, not just what you're bidding from a work perspective, from a NICS perspective, allows you to either stretch your years into this as a small business, right? You're not going to be able to bid the things that are $7 million anymore. So maybe stop looking at them, right? Instead, focus on the ones that where your NICS codes will give you a little bit more runway. So that suddenly becomes, that pivot becomes key. And it's not a natural thing to think through because you think all your work's in the same code. But listen, we've convinced people in the government side to move things from 541-611 to 541-715, which is we do a lot of life science research. That's a life science research code, and it has 1,000 employees standard. I have 50 employees in the US and 100 and some overseas that don't count. So the bottom line is I'm way below the 1,000 employee size standard and will be for years to come. So I've slowly pivoted to where almost everything we bid is a 541-715. We don't look at things. Why go waste our time looking at something that's going to be a challenge for us to implement? Prime awards become a priority. So suddenly 80% of your prime bids are your targets, right? And you start looking at unrestricted. When we were doing $25 million, we bid on one Oasis unrestricted. People thought, why in the world are you doing that? But now we won work in that space, and we're just in the middle of working on a proposal that's actually kicking off today. Is unrestricted. We have one of the large primes that actually held this contract before, and they're going to be our sub. So how's that? I wouldn't be able to do that, but that actually puts us in the unrestricted space, which is something you want to do as you approach becoming, going over 30 million when you start getting into the large business competition. Most companies don't go out of business when they're small. The biggest problem they have, Mauricio, you and I, remember we've talked about this dead man's land, right? It's when you get above 25 to 30 million, now you're competing with Lidos and you're not going to win.
It's the valley of death.
Huh? The valley of death.
Yeah.
It's just horrible. So the more you can stretch your NICS codes, the more you can look to partnering, the more you can do it, carving your own niche in an unrestricted space, the better it is for you long term. Partnerships, again, now become critical to your success. Before they were important, now they're critical because it's the only way you're going to be able to bid that thing that you no longer qualify for, is to be able to do that through a partner that you've been working with over the years. And now you're saying, okay, that company I know and trust, I can work with them in the free compete. That is my work that I used to have before, right? One thing that is not on this slide, but it becomes key, and I only learned this in the last couple of years, and that is, if you're ever envisioning working with a PE group, a private equity group, or a VC group, suddenly 7% fee becomes the minimum that you're going to target. Because that's what they're going to be. Most PE groups and VC groups are looking for you to be doing at least 7%. All right, 2 more minutes, Skip. All right, send me next slide. I think that's it. Okay, so this is what I'm going to talk next. So let me bring up this spreadsheet. All right, so the next thing I'm going to talk about is, so how do you develop a pipeline, right? Well,
Carlos, you need to share your screen, sir.
I will in 10 seconds. So the way we do is, can you see my slide?
Yes.
My spreadsheet. Okay. The way Carlos Rivera does it, which I'm sure is somebody out there does it far better than me. But the way I do it is I built a spreadsheet that basically allows me to say, and I'm going to walk everybody through this. And again, they're going to give you a copy of this if you decide you want to use something like this, right? But basically, in 2023, if you're doing $5 million a year, and let's just say that you're lucky and you have a $20 million backlog over 4 years. So you have 4 more years at 5 million, right? Because you won some contract or a couple of contracts that total that. Now you got to develop a pipeline for this coming year. Well, one thing that you go, oh, I just need to grow by 2 million. No, you need to grow by 5 million because you're going to burn $5 million this year, right? Because you're going to bill for them. It's not static. You're going to lose $5 million in backlog this year because you lose 5 million a year. So you need to win that, and then you need to win the delta, the difference between that and the growth that you want to grow. So if you want to grow by 10%, I'm making that up, right? But whatever your target is, 10% is a healthy growth rate. Then you need to win. You need to win basically $2.5 million. In wins to give you your 5 million, right? So you need to win $27.5 million. So you need to replace 5 million plus the 2.5 million. That gives you 27.5 million. And if you assume that you win 20% of your bids, again, you're gonna get this, so don't write it down or anything. Then my assumption is that you're gonna write a bid a month, 10 to 12 bids. That's it, right? So what I did was I created, this is my own working sheet, right? And it says, all right, what do my bids look like? One, if I'm able to get a sole source or a task order on a single award IDIQ that I hold, then I have 100% chance of winning those, right? And you can just read the rest. Minimal teaming, it's less than 30 days. We're gonna be the prime, or we're gonna be a subcontractor. Say I have a joint venture with an 8A and they're bidding it. So they're going to win an 8A sole source. Well, I'm going to be a sub on that, right? But I have 100% chance of winning because it's a sole source, right? Then my smaller bids, right? Which is you focus on existing clients. It could be a GSA award, or it could be a small contract or some sort of IDIQ task order, right? Minimum teaming requirement, minimum capture. You're going to be either the prime or the sub. And I put the bulk, in my case, this is just the way it works for me, the bulk of my bids in that space, not in the sole source. Sole source over time work against you because it's really hard to, the moment you're no longer eligible to get a sole source, then you're hobbled. If that was your only approach to winning work, let me tell you, that doesn't work long term. You have to learn how to do this. So then your middle range bids, which are the 30 to 120 days, you have about 90 days, the thing comes out, you're working with teaming partners, and then you work, notice that I put 20% roughly, you hope. The more capture you do, the better that percentage is, your win rate, right? But again, and then these are the onesies that you're gonna go after just to take a wild swing, and that is, I'm gonna go, this is something that is a year out or more. I'm teaming, I'm doing research, I'm doing capture work, I'm meeting with the client, the stuff that we talked about. If I'm a sub, I'm asking for 20% work share or something like that, right? If I'm investing all that time and effort into it, then I'm gonna try to get a bigger piece of that pie. But again, that's gonna be the least amount of bids that I'm working on, right? Because those, most likely, you're not gonna win. But it's really every now and then, as they say, even a blind squirrel finds a nut, right? So every now and then, you'll win one of those. And these are the game changers because they suddenly, you went after it and you won it. And then you're like, whoa, all right, here we go. Now you're in a different band altogether. And now you're having to build HR systems and all these things, right? But I typically try to calculate what the cost for me to write the proposal is. And that's in hours. Your time costs money. People's time costs money. A consultant managing that proposal costs money. All of those things. So we normally assign a value as to what that is, right? So, and the reason why that is because then we try to figure out, I try to allocate my 12 bids, right? I think in this case it's 4, 6 to 11, right? And if we did it in that ratio, my target bid contract value is that. So I'm bidding $96 million. You say that's a lot. My bid pipeline right now is 1.2 billion is what we're writing this year. My target win is my $27 million. So then you allocate it based on a ratio on those numbers, right? And then your target annual revenue is 5.5 million. So the questions are, is this your target? Is this your target? And then based on these costs that we said, then for me to write those proposals, I'm going to spend $192,000 to write them because they're not free. Now it could be that you spend your nights and weekends writing it. That's great. That's why you spend your 192 grand. But the moment you employ other people, you can't have them working every night and weekend on top of working 8 hours a day and billing. Because that doesn't last either. That dog don't hunt. So you're gonna have to figure out that you're gonna have to get some money in order to cover those BD costs, right? So these are the same, the type of things trying to point back to those. Is this what you're looking for? Is this the rate that you're looking for? Is this the targets that you're trying to do? Are these the type of things that you're trying to achieve so you can hit your number? And they're gonna give you a copy of this. You can modify it. If you can improve it, please send it back to me. I'm not an Excel expert. This is the best I can do. This, by the way, goes straight into my business plan every year. We do a business plan, an annual business plan, and the number of bids that we'll do go in there every year. And why is that? Because my BD staff knows how many bids you have to do this year, how many bids you have to support this year, how many things we're going to do this year. And your performance is measured against that. If you're my proposal manager and you're going to do 50% of these bids, or let's say you're managing 100% of them, then you better hit 11 bids for the year because then you did your job. If you didn't, then, you know, this is how I measure your performance as an employee. All right, I'll stop right there with this. Hold on, how do I stop that? Can you go back to the slides for a second?
Yep, 1 second.
Okay, and then Skip is all yours.
Standing by, my friend.
Uh,
I think we're
all right.
on this one, maybe.
Yeah, so everything, no, keep going. No, keep going. There. So everything I covered in that slide is in there. Can you go to the next slide? That was the exercise that we just went through. And now, at Visnova, we manage a pipeline that has over 500 things in it at any given point. We manage a pipeline that goes out 5 years. We can't do that on a spreadsheet. We would not be able to do that. And we have performance measurements. So we evaluated half a dozen products in the marketplace. And then we chose a product called Capture Exec by a company called Bit Solutions, which happens to be right here local. It's a small business right here in Annapolis. So Skip's the president and CEO of Bit Solutions. Has been a friend of mine for years. And he, like I said, he's probably forgotten more about BD than I'll ever learn. So Skip, to you, brother.
Thank you, sir. Really appreciate it. And
You can take me off the air.
that was a great presentation, Carlos, and a lot of great information in there for all size companies. You know, I spent 25 years around the Beltway. managing complex captures, running companies, doing government contracting, small, mid-size, and large. And Mauricio, I was with SEIC when we split the two companies into the two pieces. So many of my friends went to Leidos, and it's a great organization. But we're proud to have Carlos as a customer of ours and his company. I think when you started with us, Carlos, you were maybe $8 million, and look where you are today. So
That's
you've
right.
done a great job, and it's fun to talk to people about your company and how successful you've been. And of course, I always tell them it's because of Capture Exact, but that's a different issue altogether. So that was a little street cred for us. Just I understand the industry. I've done it from the ground up for many years, and again, I've run small companies, mid-size and large, so I know it from every aspect of the pain and challenges that it takes to build a small company into a successful large company, and it's very difficult to do. And what you do find out in the real world is, if you're whoever's in front of the customer the most and becoming their trusted advisor, and giving them suggestions on making their programs different, better, smarter, stronger, those are the people that are going to do the best in the competition, when they're starting to do the selection criteria and down selecting companies. So, collecting G2, gathering information about not just what the RFP 5 needs are that are going to come out on paper and everybody's going to see anyway, but about the 20 items that program manager or that CO or XO has a problem with, keeps them up at night. Those are the things that if you can write to those in your responses, they're going to resonate strongly. So I'm just going to show you a little bit about what Carlos is using as a system, so that you can kind of get an idea of what you should be thinking about in terms of gathering information, collecting data points, asking the right questions in that process. As Carlos has shown,
Excuse me, Skip, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sure.
But just in terms of a time check, so we have about 30 minutes left for the entire session, and we want to allow about 15 minutes,
right,
at least for Q&A. So just, I don't know, hopefully you can cover the content.
Just pop in again. Well, content's relevant. I'm just trying to give oversight, but yeah, just pop
Perfect.
in when we're down to our time, and we'll wrap it up there. Thank you.
Sounds great. Thanks.
Always somebody from Leidos stepping in like that. I know. So as Carlos was saying, you can't just fly your plane blindly when you're running your company, whether you're a startup, a micro, a small, or large. You have to have foresight, you have to have planning, you have to look at your history on how you got where you are and what's your plan to get where you're going. So all of that's about analytics and charts and graphs that you can do in the spreadsheet that Carlos manages to keep in his business plan. Everything's about collecting and aggregating that data across your enterprise so that you understand all the different metrics that are going to change your business for the positive or for the negative. But I'm going to kind of shift away from executive views and kind of look at what people need to do. The first thing, and Carlos mentioned, where do you get data from? You should be out on these data sources, whether it's SAM or GovIQ or Federal Compass or EasyGovOps or Gabini or any of those other data aggregators, so that you can collect data, find information about the opportunities that you want to chase. And just as importantly, don't look for opportunities that are 3 months out when the proposals due. Because if that's when you first learn about an opportunity, I guarantee you've already lost. If you're not in front of the government shaping the deal, as Carlos said it very well, if I go to Leidos and it's, 3 months before the proposal coming out, he has absolutely zero value for me, right? As a contractor, because he's already built his team long, long ago. And again, only gaps need to be filled, and they'll be reaching out for gaps, not seeking people that are walking in. So your best avenue is to go out and find opportunities that match your criteria, that are far enough out that you have time to understand, read about it, understand what it is, meet with the government, then go find your prime if you're going to sub and say, I already know where I fit in this puzzle, and here's my value add for that piece or those pieces. So there's so many people, look at opportunities that are a couple months out going, oh, this is perfect for my company. But no, you've already lost. So you saw Carlos's spreadsheet, and you're spending a couple $100,000 responding to opportunities. And that money's just going out the door if you keep responding to things that you've already lost. So you need to have a longer runway in your vision, and you need to have tools to keep you up to date on what you're doing. It doesn't matter what tool it is. There's lots of tools out in the marketplace that can track this information, bring it all into a system, and then be able to manage those captures. Again, Carlos said that, he's got a target of a dozen deals they have to win, but you can't have 12 things in your pipeline because you're not going to win them all. So you have to have hundreds of things in your pipeline that you're shaping, chasing, managing, gathering G2 on. And and as Carlos said, rightly so, you get to a certain size and you can't manage it in a spreadsheet because it's not interactive, it's not real time, and it's not always updated when you need that information. So you need some type of system to organize everything for you so you can easily prioritize things and favorite things and know what stage things are in, and how well you're shaping a deal, what the P-win is. All those pieces of information are vital so that you can make better, smarter go, no go decisions, because every dollar you spend on pre-BMP is money that's cash out the door. And the more you can control and manage that before you get to the big dollars, which is your BMP dollars, is important, especially for smaller companies who don't have a lot of money to spend on deals you're already going to lose. So you have to be, very myopic. And Carlos articulated this very well. You have to be very myopic on what commands, posts, stations, agencies you're visiting, and what you want to do in that agency. Don't just go to, USAID and say, I want to do work for you. You got to go there and say, I am a specialist in this area, in this country, in this region, that I can add value for that particular piece. Then there's something they can try to find that fits that value. And again, you don't become successful like Carlos by just tossing bids out, hoping you win a couple and make enough money to go on to the next couple. You have to be focused on where you are. So being able to visualize and track things in real time is really important. And again, gathering the right information about each opportunity is vital, right? Know what stage you're in and what the gate review process is important. Knowing when all your dates are. Have you researched everything? Have you talked to the government? Are you managing that information so that anybody in your organization that looks at this knows there's an RFP coming out in July 1st? And if you find out it's coming out April 15th and you haven't updated the system, Carlos is looking at this with his plan throughout the year, knowing that he doesn't need a proposal manager till July, and getting surprised in April that you have 4 RFPs come out at the same time is not a happy thought for owners of companies. So having data that's always up to date, in real time, always relative and correct is vitally important, as well as knowing, for each stage that you progress through in a capture, what questions should I be asking the government? And when in the process should I ask it? This is vitally important. You know, if you got an opportunity 2 years out and you get a meeting set up with the PM and you go in to meet them for the first time, don't ask them what the NAICS code is going to be, what the set asides are, you know, who are you going to, you know, award this to, a small business. They don't know any of that yet. You know, what they're still working on is funding. Do I have the money to do this program, and where am I getting that from? I used to always go in, the first set of questions, you know, other than getting to know you, is how's the incumbent doing, right? Because if they tell you the incumbent's doing great and we love them, you've already lost that deal. The government doesn't really want to change horses every 5 years because they have to reteach the new horse how to run my business. And it's just hard and arduous and painful. They don't want to change. What you want to find out from asking that question is, you know, they're just doing okay. They've had some problems, but they've been resolved, or they're not doing real well and we're not terribly happy. That's the best news a company could hear, because it means you do have a chance to unseat that incumbent, and spending money to make sure the government knows who you are, what you are, why you are, how you can change things to be better for them. They're not going to write in the proposal or the RFP, you know, we need a company to do better than our current incumbent. But you knowing what issues they're having, when you write your response, you're weaving that story in. You know, we don't let networks go down because we preemptively test every network we manage to make sure that the test environment doesn't go down. And if it does, what the response is, as opposed to waiting for your live system to go down, then figuring that out on the fly, right? That's what the government wants to hear, because you've already learned from them that their network's gone down twice and it was painful to get it back up and running. And that's the challenge they're having with their incumbent. So you write to that, you ghost that, so that they understand that you're already ahead of that process. And that's the kind of company I want in place as a government entity. So, and again, what you want and what Carlos wants is repeatability. Once you figure out how to win 20% of your deals, and you have a model, what questions do I ask? When do I ask those questions? Where in the cycle do I collect that information, so that you know what data to collect, when to collect it, during the process? All of that information helps you make those go, no go decisions and spend your pre-B&P wisely on deals where you've already made inroads to the customer, you have a value add, and the customer sees that you may be a better fit as a prime to lead their organization than the current incumbent. All that data needs to be collected, because at the end of the day, the company that knows the most about that agency or command post and station, you're going to write a better response to the RFP because you know more about all the facets of their organization. You know, when I used to ask in the first meetings, I'd say, are you currently funded for this program? They say, yeah, no, we're still trying to get our money organized. I had gotten to the point where I knew most of the 7s, 8s out there, you know, the stars that were out there of the different services and agencies within, and the SESs. So I could say, well, where are you getting funding now? Who are you talking to? And they say, well, I'm talking to General Johnson, you know, at PCOM, and I'm trying to get money so that I can do my program. And I can sit back and say, I know General Johnson. How about, you know, you got two choices here. How about if I talk to General Johnson and explain how important your program is, and how, you know, and see if I can get some money moved over to you so that you're funded and ready to move forward. And then, you know, so we'd work out a plan of attack to do that if they needed help doing that. Or, you know, you find out how you can help them gather more of the things they need, not responding to one RFP, but helping them get ready with white papers, right? Lots of times companies will put together a white paper and say, we've done 300 networks. You've told me how you're going to do yours. How about if I put together a white paper that kind of gives you guidance? We're not going to tell you what to do, but it'll tell you things that'll help you organize your thoughts and think about different alternatives. You got to sit with a Cisco network, but maybe it should have been a Nortel network or some other type of network. And here's reasons why we've been successful doing that, so that you're not, pigeonholed into one thinking with one solution that may or may not be working that well. So it's all about, talking to the right people from the CO down to, the KO group, through the program managers. And as Carlos was absolutely right on, whether you're a large company or small company, talking to the small business advocates at that agency to your business. And when I was with small businesses, they helped me find paths to opportunities, contracts that would match my skill set. When I was a big company, they would help me find small companies that they liked that would be able to solve their problems. And it's always good to get the organization to suggest small companies to add to your team, because when they see the team composite and they recognize the names of some of your teammates, that makes the source selection board feel much more comfortable with your prime bid than other people where they don't know any of the companies. All those pieces are what you need to do every day to shape a deal to be more value added. And it's all about collecting information, again, whether it's in a spreadsheet when you're smaller or in some type of organized collection process. And it's all about being able to see your forecast, manage it, and make better go, no go decisions all along the way, so that you can spend your very limited, even Carlos has limited resources to spend on pre-BMP and BMP every year. Even Mauricio has, you're given a budget. It might be $5 million instead of $100,000, but you're given a red box. The box is full of money. When you run out of money, you're done. And if you run out of money before you win enough deals that you're supposed to make your bogey on, you're in big trouble, right? Because you can't bid any more deals. You don't have any more money, and you're not going to win and make your goals. So it's all about being really, really myopically focused. I know small companies, I talk to them every day. We do demos for companies. I say, do you do gate reviews? No, I just look at the deal and I decide whether I feel like it's good or not good. And, I try gently to explain, that's great, but you need to be more structured in your go, no go reviews, however you do them, because they will control the spigot on how you spend your limited assets on pre-BMP and BMP. So any kind of system you get, I know it's time, Mauricio, I'm ready, but thank you. Any system, any way that you have of collecting information and having it in front of you is really valuable to make sure that everything in every stage has a review point by you guys, the owners of the companies, to make sure that you're spending money the right way to win deals. So that's what I have the kind of adjunct to Carlos's process.
Excellent. Thank you, Skip. Appreciate all of that. Carlos, I don't know if you had any final
Yeah, I do.
thoughts
I want to
before.
add two things before
Okay.
you take that screen off the thing. So one of the things that's allowed us to grow and to be able to compete with larger firms than us, right, is that we try to automate as much as we can the processes that we have. I apologize, Skip, I didn't give you enough time, but one of the things that we do within the system is our NDAs and our TAs the templates are in the system. So when you load an opportunity and I say I need an NDA and TA, I literally click a button and it spits it out. It also spits out all my gate review process. So if all the information and opportunity, the templates for the gate reviews in PowerPoint are loaded in the system. So you're able to basically click on that and it spits out my gate review. So even if I have outside partners, they go, wow, you guys are super organized. No, it's because we have templates. We have lots of templates that we use. So we look like a much larger firm. Again, remember my cat thing? I look kind of bigger, but in reality, it's because I'm leveraging technology to help me do the things that we do. So the brigade reviews, the teaming documents, all of those things are in the system. It's also our repository. So in Visnova, CaptureXA is a system of record for all of our bid opportunities. So every document associated with the opportunity, the RSP and everything is actually loaded in the document section of the system. And I'll stop right there, Skip it. I know I'm selling it even more, but I mean, this drives us. This system alerts me when I have to do something. It tells me if I'm the manager and I'm looking at the capture and it doesn't have enough of a bid P1, I'm going to kill it. I killed an opportunity today, a USAID opportunity for $25 million. I did that today. First thing this morning. I said, we're not going to bid it. We're not going to win.
Don't bid on things you're not going to win. That's right.
Right. Why am I going to write it? Anyway, questions?
Yes, well, thank you, Carlos and Skip, for great information, great presentations. So let me turn it over to our attendees, our VIPs. If you have questions, if you could please use the raise your hand feature in your Zoom toolbar, and I will call on you, and you can unmute and ask the questions. I saw something in the chat earlier, and I don't see anybody with their hand raised right now, but there was something in the chat earlier about the spreadsheet that you use, Carlos, and is there a different spreadsheet for businesses under 3 million in revenues?
No, I use the same thing.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, all you do is you adjust the numbers, whatever the number is. If it's in the hundreds of thousands and not in the millions, that's fine. Just
Okay.
it's just simply it's a planning tool. Because if I say I gotta find 10 bids, and if I bid 50% of the things I do capture on, right? So I gotta find 20 bids. But in reality, I do capture on about 25% of the things I find. So I'll find 40 opportunities. I'll whittle it down to 20. I'll do capture on them, and then I bid 10. That's the way we do it. So you're cutting it down. So that's why we have a pipeline that has 500 items, but we'll submit 40 bids in a year. We're not going to bid 500 things. That would be insane. You have to cut it down, and you just have to be, as Skip said, completely ruthless. It's all about dollars and cents.
Got it. Okay. Thank you for that. Well, Jose Lopez, I see you have your hand up. Please, I guess you're unmuted. Please go right ahead.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Mauricio, Mr. Carlos, and Mr. Skip. How can a company, a small business such as mine, have a mentor or an opportunity to get outstanding advice such as the one that you're providing now within your company? Because I have a feeling that it's going to be kind of impossible of talking to you guys personally, but if you have a representative or someone that I can be in contact with and ask for training, advice, so that I can one day become like one of you guys.
Mauricio, I mean, I would say that Jose, I appreciate the question. And you're right. I mean, you only have so many hours a day. I get invited. You'll be amazed. I literally received 2 emails while we've been talking, saying, "Hey, I'd love to see if I can get together for dinner or lunch, or if I ate every lunch somebody invites me to, I literally would not fit in this chair. It's impossible. I don't have enough time." So VIP is a great organization. They do put together training to help you. They also have, I think VIP tries to promote the larger veteran companies to also do help with the ones that are just coming on and they're just learning and all that. So I think they've done some sort of events before where they try to connect them. There's also, what is that called, Mauricio? The SBA. The SBA has resources.
The 7J?
Yeah, I think that's what it's called, right? Where they have these centers that they have training programs. I can never remember what they're called.
The V-Box.
The Viva, yes.
Mhm.
So
And
they
the PTACs, the Apex accelerators, I think that's what you're talking about.
That's it. That's it. So
Yeah.
they have training. So if you need training on how to develop partnerships or how to do this or how to create a teaming agreement or how to do those things, they normally have a lot of that canned stuff. They also have networking events all the time because I attend a few of those. And then you do meet with a bunch of different people. At
I
different
think
places.
that's the key is networking, right?
Yep.
I was at a dinner the other night, networking dinner, and somebody came up to me and was had a small business and just said, well, how did you do what you do, and how do I get to be like Carlos, and what do I do, and it wasn't like I spent an hour with her explaining a business plan, but I said, you have to create a differentiator. Right. I said, I'll bet you're in cyber or something like that. Right. And she laughed because she was in cyber. And I said, do you do anything different than the other 100 people in this room doing cyber? And she said, probably not. Then I said, that's your ticket. You need to find something different about cyber that you become an expert in. Then when you go talk to the government and say, everybody does cyber, but I do this. And so just being in networking, talking to people and getting, 5 minutes of somebody's time like Carlos and say, how do I become you? And he'll give you 5 minutes to say, look, you got to start small. You win with being subs, then you grow and you start priming. I mean, all the things that were on a spreadsheet, you'll start being successful doing that.
Thank you.
And I would add also follow-up, make sure you follow up with the ones that, because there are a lot of outreach, a lot of networking events. I was, for example, we're at the National 8A conference last week, and there was just, dozens and dozens of conversations. And, things that you talk about potentially partnering together or whatever it might be, but the key is follow up afterwards, because there's just too many, conversations in a large event that someone might seem like a good match or a good potential mentor, whatever it might be, but make sure you just follow up and close the loop on it.
Thank you.
Sure. Other questions? Usually the VIPs are not this quiet.
Maybe I get off easy this time.
Oh, you're not getting off easy.
Uh-oh, somebody's still.
Hey, sir, I almost
Go
said
ahead,
Captain
Sarah.
Ford. I forgot 30 years I'm retired. I keep forgetting my new name. My question is simply, I know we talked about the big, broad brush of cyber. In my case, I am a recognized expert in public health and health, but as a providing advisory services, I'm struggling to identify my proposition value. And I cannot wait to see the notes. I think you gave great advice. My question really is, for someone who has advisory, how to enhance programs, your idea of going to the big ones and saying, here's a company that has expertise that I can help you meet your small business goals. That's a great advice. I had never considered doing it that way, but I still nonetheless need to have a better story to articulate my proposition value. Is there any more information that you can provide given that?
On developing a value proposition?
Well, selling the story beyond just saying, here are my capabilities, right? Like, what am I expert at? I heard you guys loud and clear.
So,
The best success is past performance, right? So, and same like in size. So you don't go talk to a government agency looking for $100 million deal if the biggest one you've ever done is a $3 million deal. You got to find like in size and go to them and say, look, I've done this 5 times for 5 different agencies, and here's what we were successful in helping them with.
yeah, and a lot of that is leveraged via white papers, right? So you'll write a white paper that will talk what was the challenge, what the agency or the client or whoever it was had the challenge, and how you as part of a team or or your company or whatever was able to bring expertise that then obviously the last section is the resolution, right, or the results. Well, you're able to improve. Normally everything comes out to one of three things. Either you did it better, faster, or cheaper. I mean, that's the bottom line. That's a three things that everything is measured by. So that's one way of doing it. Now creating, Mauricio, I thought there was something in one of the training programs all about value proposition, creating your value proposition.
Yes, that is part of it, part of the curriculum.
Yeah,
Yes.
so maybe you could fill that out as one of these type of sessions where you do just have somebody do a session on value. That's key. One of the things that, and I'm not promoting this book or anything, but the Start With Why really resonated with me because it's 100% about building your value proposition, right? So that particular book helped me develop a value proposition after I've been doing this literally 17 or 18 years. And I thought I was pretty good at it. And then obviously you read something that you go, darn it, I mean, that is so much better. And I was able, that little 18-minute video led to a book, which then led to us developing our why, which became is our value proposition. Why do we do what we do? And because people buy what you do, not the features on it or anything like that's all supporting this stuff, right? But why you and not somebody else, right? So that was key. But that value proposition certainly could be a subject of a separate. I think that's a great thing.
Agree. No, that's a great idea, Carlos. We will absolutely.
Oh, it was hers, not mine.
Yes. I see a question in the chat from Neil. How do you recommend capturing that first deal? And how do you convince a larger prime to give a new company a chance? I assume networking and value proposition. Do you have suggested techniques, forums, or tips? I guess we just talked about a few.
I will tell you that I've worked with Ostabus for years. I worked with SPLOs for years. As a matter of fact, my wife is an SPLO for that little company called Accenture. I really believe that you just need to be clear as to what it is that you bring to them and what for. In other words, not just show up and say, oh, I do blah, 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 blah. I've sat in meetings before where somebody spent 30 minutes telling me about themselves, their company, their kids, their dog, their cat. I don't care. I don't mean to be crass or anything, but I run a program. If I'm a program manager, I run a program. So the only thing I care about is how do I make my program better, right? So focus on what it is that you're talking to me about. You know, yeah, I would love to network and understand you and all that. But if you're coming to me to talk about my program, let's use public health as that was the example of that other lady. Talk to me what it is that you bring to public health. I have experience doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I set up my own company and now I'm providing that as a service and I'm able to leverage it. And then help me solution, how do I bring you into the program? I can do it as a 1099 or I can do it as a, you know, you're certainly not looking for employment, right? And how do you package it becomes key. I really think that I could help you at the definition phase when you're developing the overall architecture on how you're going to implement this public health program. I can add to your team and brings this expertise because I know the client and I know the place and I know the things that are going to be done. So that's like Skip was saying, past performance is your ticket to come in. Everything else is, you know, anybody can say they can do anything. Anybody can bid a bid for 50 bodies. Of course, I can go on Indeed and find 50. Anyone can do that. But being able to show that you've done it for that particular client or you've done it in that particular industry is the key. So past performance and your value proposition go hand in hand as you approach that large prime or that agency if you're submitting a bid.
Great, thanks, Carlos. I guess I see, Mark, you have your hand up. We'll leave you. We'll give you the last question, please.
Thank you, Mauricio. Hey, Carlos, I just wanted to say, you really opened my eyes to the subcontracting. We have one prime and we've done some smaller civilian and some consulting type stuffs, but you've reversed my mindset. And I definitely think that more of that past performance via subcontracting is going to be the focus. This year, I already had my agencies and some of the large guys that I was going to reach out to for their small business liaisons. And so very, very awesome information. But my question is this. I've looked at tools, very much value technology and stuff. But at what point, because I've always listened to folks about their CRMs and different things, this tool with Bit Solutions looks fantastic, but everything has a price tag, right? So like budgeting wise, like where would you see it or where would you recommend kind of that tipping point to, start really going after these things versus just my own self spreadsheets, analog type stuff?
That's a great question. So, I think Skip, you mentioned, I think we really started using your software, Ernest, when we were doing about $8 million, right? I think we actually bought it like at 5 million because we had this ambition of, oh yeah, we're gonna set it all up and do all that. And then we were so busy trying to win work, we never got around to doing it. It took us like a year or two before one of my people go, well, we have to dig in. We have to start making this work because by that point we gotten enough what do you call that? Enough work to now make us take a step back and go, oh shoot, wait a minute. We gotta figure out how to get this done more efficiently because we were dying. And the sad part was all along we had a solution in front of us, but we had not taken the time to set it up. Once we did, it accelerated everything because we went from 8 to 15 to 30 in one skip. I mean, like bam, bam, bam. It was like insane. But a lot of that was because we now had automated tools to support it. I think 5 to 8 million, maybe that's a good point. I don't know, Skip, you probably know.
Well, it's just not to sell anything, but this is our flagship product. And lots of small companies are not ready to afford that if you're less than 5 million. We did release January 1st, a new product for startups, micros, and small companies. And it's called Sam Gov Tracker. And it's a micro version.
I don't even know about it.
And it's $25 a month per user. And all small businesses can afford that. Right. And then when you grow your company, you can just roll right into our flagship product when you're ready.
I sincerely didn't even know that, Mark. So thanks.
I think I'm going to call you, Skip. Thank you.
That'd be great. I mean, it's a great way to get started getting, as Carlos had said, the best thing you can do for a small company is be organized and have everything in front of you. And spreadsheets are hard to do that with as you get beyond one person. And so that's just another option. I'm sure there's other ones out there that I can talk to you about as well. But we saw the market for small startups and we decided we needed to make a product for them so they could be successful.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
All right. Well, thank you. I think we are over time, but very important questions. And I'm sorry, Carlos, did you have one other thing?
No.
Okay,
the one thing I wanted to slip because I did mention contracts and subcontracts and prime contracts. Don't sleep on grants. Grants.gov, I'm going to put in a plug for them, okay? So if you look at an agency like USAID, Mauricio, how much is contracts? 25%?
About 25-30%. Yeah, the rest is grants and cooperative agreements.
70% of the spend is grants. Think about that for a minute. If you don't look at grants, you're ignoring 70% of their spend. The thing about grants is you don't make profit. The good news about grants is that they reimburse all your indirects. And that's a whole different conversation. But anyway, long and short of it, and they're easier to get. In many instances, it's not a ridiculous amount of competition. It's a lot easier to
Right.
win one of those. So it may be something that you want to do. Maybe another day do a thing on grants. I know I did one something for SPIC. And there's one more thing about grants that's important is that oh yeah, they give you the funding up front, so you need to finance anything.
Excellent. All
That's
right.
it. I gotta
Okay.
go.
Well, yes, thank you so much, Carlos and Skip, for really great information, very informative. And thank you to our participants for attending this session and to the SBA for making this webinar possible. We hope you enjoyed the pilot of our VIP Continued Education Workshop. In the next 24 hours, you're going to receive a video recording of today's session, along with a brief anonymous survey about this workshop and the others in the series. Please fill that out. Your feedback is really, really important to us, and that's what makes us, really try to improve each time. So thanks to everyone for your participation. One last reminder, we are currently taking applications for all 5 curriculums. Just please go onto our website, nationalvip.org, especially VIP International, which is coming up in the next month. And we have a couple slots open, so make sure you apply if you have an interest in contracting out overseas. Thank you to everyone. Have a great rest of your week and much success in the future. Thanks again, Carlos and Skip. Wonderful presentation.
Great job, Mauricio. Thank you so much for the time.
Take
Take
care.
Good luck,
Thanks, guys.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.